Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Highbury Standard. My name is Javi, and we're kind of in the middle of the international break right now, which isn't ideal. I think the first Premier League game is going to be on the 10th of April, which is still probably about a week and a half away or so. But as we're in this kind of international break, I've been seeing a lot of discussions, and one thing has become very clear to us, and that is that the general footballing world, especially in England, does not want Arsenal to win the Premier League. And I wanted to kind of discuss today why that is exactly. Now, as we head into this final run-in, we're the clear favorites to win the league. It's definitely in our hands, and if we don't secure the league title, it's going to be viewed as very much a bottle job. But why don't people want Arsenal to win the league? Why are they more than happy to see Manchester City, who's basically turned the Premier League into the Bundesliga? If we're honest, they've won what, 6 out of the last 8 Premier Leagues. They won 4 in a row. Why would they want to see Manchester City win the league again? Okay, is it jealousy? Is it envy? Is it envy? Is it a rivalry? What is it? Now, I tried to sort of take the time to think about this, and I tried to extrapolate things and look at everything kind of from a macro as opposed to just a micro point of view. And the first thing that I kind of realized is that the footballing world as a whole really values kind of the grassroots heritage of football. They really, really do. Football was a game of the people. It was not a game of the elites. It was not a game of the rich. And football, more and more every single day, is becoming that. And I think you saw that especially when there was manifestations against, the Super League and the direction that the football, was heading. And I think there's also a lot of controversy right now with kind of, cup finals being played in Middle Eastern countries. The World Cup in America has a lot of controversy with ticket prices. We've seen a lot of people sort of revering the Bundesliga for how they treated fairs over there with their tickets, keeping things very low to always help with the fans. It's been a very, very big discussion surrounding kind of protecting football's heritage, its grassroots, and the fans as a whole. So the footballing world has never been one to really be happy with the sport being handed to the rich and the elites, which is why clubs like Chelsea, PSG, and Manchester City have always sort of been looked down on because of the takeovers, because of their clubs that kind of bought their way to the top, that they didn't really do things the right way, and why there's almost this kind of general idea and understanding that they have bought it all, hence the famous chants, "You've bought it all." And so footballing fans really value teams that do things the right way. They value history and they value heritage. And when you look at Arsenal, they have all three of those things. It's a team that has a very big history domestically, of course, not in Europe. You have the famous Invincibles, you have Arsene Wenger, you have the greatest Premier League player that ever played the game in Thierry Henry. You have a club with tremendous heritage. I think everybody knows that Arsenal is a team, of course, that was London's team for a very long time. Some fantastic players have played there, managers, there's a certain culture and heritage. The reality is that Arsenal is ingrained within the actual fabric of what the Premier League is and what English football is. The heritage is obviously there. And when you look at clubs that do things the right way, that's also an Arsenal Football Club. Mikel Arteta came in here. He kind of transformed the club. There wasn't a really big financial takeover. They had to struggle the first couple of years getting big players off their wages. They had to recruit very intelligently, buying Odegaard for 30 million, Gabriel for 30 million, Saliba for 20 million, Ramsdale for 30, Zinchenko for 20, Jesus for 40, Ben White for 50, slowly building a squad until eventually they were able to make big money purchases like Declan Rice. And we also saw for probably a 10 to 15 year period when they were moving towards the new stadium, that was a very big economic kind of factor for them. And for many years, they had to always be balancing the books just to be able to pay off the debts. Well, you've had clubs like a Manchester City that were basically battling out in League One and League Two and in the Championship, and some Middle Eastern country basically came in, bought them, and now all of a sudden they're competing for Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues and all these things. We see Pep Guardiola spending 150 million in a January transfer window, and then 6 months later buys another 200 million pounds worth of players and replaces the players that he bought in January because they weren't good enough. And so Arsenal is a club that has a heritage. It's a club that has a history. It's a club that's been doing things the right way financially to get to a position where they can compete right now. So why is it so much that people don't want us to win the league? Why is it that a club like Manchester City, that does not have the history of a club like Arsenal, that does not have the heritage of a club like Arsenal, and that hasn't done things the right way from a financial perspective, why do they want them to win the league? And now there's an even bigger question as well, which is that apart from football as a whole, general sports lovers, whether it's European football, American football, baseball, rugby, tennis, hockey, whatever you want to call it, the general sports fan tends to rule and cheer on the underdog. We all love an underdog story. Everyone knows and loves the underdog story. There's the famous movie Rudy. There's the Miracle, on Ice movie. Like we see sports fans as a whole always want to cheer on the little guy. And when you have Arsenal Football Club that hasn't won a Premier League title in 20 years, has no Champions League trophy in its entire history, they're going up against Manchester City, the team that's basically been dog walking this Premier League, and yet people still want City to win. Now, Arsenal fans will come out there and say, oh, it's because they're envious of us. It's because they hate us. It's because of this. It's because of that. It's because Mikel Arteta is good looking and all these other things. And the reality is, it's none of that. It's none of that. And I have the answer, guys. The reason why people don't want us to win the league is because our fan base is intolerable. We have the loudest, most overconfident, and frankly, most annoying fan base in probably all of English football. And that's why people don't want us to win the league. It's that simple. It is that simple. And the reason for it is because this fan base, the way it moves itself, the way it speaks on social media, the way it creates content, you would think it's a team that was in Manchester City's shoes. A team that's won a bunch of Premier League titles, a team with a tremendous amount of European heritage, a team with Ballon d'Or winners, a team that's accomplished something. That's the way they move and that's the way they talk. And and when people then think to themselves, if you are this loud and this delusional when you haven't won anything in 20 years, I can only imagine how loud and delusional you're going to be when you actually win the Premier League, or if you were to, by some mistake, win the Champions League. And our fan base seriously needs to recognize that we are attracting so much hate, so much banter, and basically making ourselves a laughing stock, despite having the history, despite having the heritage, despite doing things the right way, because we don't do, or rather we don't act the way Erling Haaland told us to act, which is to be humble. And honestly, that's why Man City doesn't get the hate that they deserve, because their fans are humble. Everyone knows, of course, Big Steve, creates a lot of content on the Big Six, and as a big Man City fan, this guy stays humble, and he's seen his team dog walk the Premier League. He's seen his team win Champions Leagues. But why does he stay humble? Because he remembered what it was like to go to Coventry City away. He remembered what it was like to see his team struggling, and he's living the dream. But he stays humble because he remembers where he came from. But Arsenal fans, the majority of them, still think that this is 2004. Shout the Invincibles, Invincibles, Invincibles 49 times from the top of their lungs. Okay, like if we're relevant when we're not. So I'm sorry, you can't say it's envy. You can't say that it's rivalry. Because let's be real, guys. Let's look at our rivals. Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson alone has the same amount of Premier League titles that this entire club has. 13. Us winning an extra Premier League title does not even do a chink in the armor to the heritage and the history and the pedigree that is Manchester United. Liverpool, we can't chat to them. They've got 6 Champions League titles. We have none. We can't chat to Liverpool. They won one last year. They can't chat to us. Chelsea, they have 2 Champions League titles, and they're our local rival. You think they give a rat's ass if we win the Premier League? They have 2 Champions League titles. We can't chat to them. The only people who have a legitimate reason to not want us to win the league is Tottenham Hotspur. And that legitimate reason, comes from a position of rivalry, bitterness, anger, jealousy, envy, and all the other synonyms that come along with it. But for you to fool yourself as an Arsenal fan to think that the reason the rest of the Premier League doesn't want us to win the league is because of jealousy, you're wrong. It's because we have such an annoying and intolerable fan base that the rest of the footballing world doesn't really respect us. And it's this fan base that I genuinely believe is responsible for a lot of the failings and for a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the sort of shortcomings that this club has had as a whole, because the fan base is actually the one that sets the standard for a football club. There's a reason why the most demanding fan bases tend to have the most successful clubs. But when you have a fan base in Arsenal Football Club that moves as if it's accomplished something over the last few years because we flirted around with a league title or so, you have shortcomings and you attract hate. And then when you're actually close to accomplishing something, the rest of the world won't even sing your praises. We have people comparing Bukayo Saka to Neymar. We have people, comparing some of our players that have done nothing in their careers, and they're putting them up there with Premier League greats that have won Champions Leagues and have won, multiple, team of the season awards and have won multiple Premier League titles and have multiple medals to their name. That's how we move as a fan base. And I think that's interesting. And that's something that we as a fan base, realistically speaking, should reflect on and should really look into. Because the reality is that the rest of the footballing world should be rooting for us. They should be cheering us on. Even rival fans like a Man United and a Chelsea should be looking at this and saying, hey, you know what? I don't like that you won it, but congratulations, Arsenal, you deserve it. I'm sure Man United fans out there would actually be looking at this in a different night if we weren't so fucking annoying. They would look at us and say, hey, you know what? I hate the fact that you won it, but the height of the Premier League was when Arsenal and Man United were at the top competing every single year for Premier League trophies. That was the best era of the Premier League. Arsenal deserves to be at the top. Hopefully we would join them one day. But as much as I hate them, I'd rather they win it because of the history, because of the heritage, because of the things because of they won things and done things the right way, as opposed to these guys down the street that just bought their success and all of a sudden think they can start chatting to men. But they don't have that attitude. They'd rather see their rivals down the street win another Premier League title. This footballing culture in this footballing world that hates giving football to the elites, that hates the financial takeovers, that hates all the allegations and all the charges that are against Manchester City, the fact that they may have potentially cheated their way to all of these titles. How many Premier Leagues did they rob of Liverpool? How many Champions League places did they, steal from an Aston Villa or a Newcastle or a Tottenham or whatever other team was flirting with Champions League places over the last couple of years? How many teams got relegated because of the fact that they bought their way to the top? And people still want City to win over Arsenal, despite the fact that our winning poses no threat to the heritage, to the history, or to the standing of any of our rivals. Because we can win a freaking treble this year, and Chelsea alone still has more Champions League titles than us. How is that possible? It's because of us, the Arsenal fan base. So I sincerely hope that we as a fan base take this next week and a half to stay humble, to stay quiet, because we could very much get embarrassed in one of these competitions, and to understand that for the very first time, we are actually the favorites in every single competition, and yet it's very unlikely that we will walk away with every single trophy. And that even if we do win, and that even if we are successful, it will be our first Premier League title in over 20-something years, and to not get carried away. Celebrate, but do not get carried away. As Erling Haaland once said, stay humble. And then maybe, just maybe, the rest of the footballing world might just celebrate with us come May. I'll catch you guys in the next one.